in the mysterious realm of dreams, where the cosmic and the ordinary collide, Whitley Strieber's son found himself ensnared in a narrative that defied explanation. The child, with an innocence untouched by the grim reality of his father's extraterrestrial encounters, recounted tales of the benevolent doctors in pristine, otherworldly attire. These figures, tall and slender, moved with an eerie grace, their almond-shaped eyes penetrating the depths of the dreamer's subconscious. Intertwined with these benevolent doctors were smaller entities, mirroring the archetypal grays, diminutive in frame, yet no less enigmatic. These figures moved with an uncanny fluidity, engaging in interactions and transcending the boundaries of the familiar and the extraordinary. The dance of shapes and sizes within the dream added layers of complexity, hinting at a cosmic tapestry woven with threads of both wonder and disquiet. Compelled by the disconcerting parallels between his own encounters and his son's dreams, Stribner cautiously broached the subject with a mixture of curiosity and trepidation. "What do these beings look like?" he asked his son, careful not to influence the child's descriptions. The young dreamer, with wide-eyed sincerity, detailed the features of the entities with a matter-of-factness that left Stribner both astonished and uneasy. As the child spoke, a palatable tension filled the air. The tall, slender entities resembling benevolent doctors were described with a sense of wonder. Yet, it was the small figures, the archetypal grays, that seized the narrative. Their presence lingered in the spaces between words. The child's dream world painted with the cosmic healers and enigmatic entities became a stage where the ordinary and the inexplicable engaged in an unsettling dance. Stribner grappled with the disconcerting dissonance between the nightmarish realities and his son's perceived benevolent interactions, revealed an additional layer of intrigue. His son, he had emphasized, had never been hypnotized and would not undergo such a process until he voluntarily chose to explore the depths of his own subconscious. This declaration added an element of authenticity to the child's accounts, eliminating the possibility of external influence and the deepening of the mystery of the cosmic communion. As we traverse the intricate tapestry of otherworldly echoes, the tension escalates and the cosmic conundrum deepens. The enigma of these celestial figures take center stage, reaching a climax with a line between dreams and reality blurs. Join us in this journey into the nebulous territory, where the ordinary meets the extraordinary, seeking answers to the cosmic mysteries that bind a father and his son in an unsettling communion with the inexplicable. Welcome to the climax of otherworldly echoes, where the threads of cosmic wonder and the disquiet leave a narrative that defies the constraints of our understanding.
Well, welcome listeners and viewers alike. We're jumping into episode 3 of Aliens. This is going to be a very intriguing and interesting ride. So what was being described there in the story that was at the beginning was the continuation of Whitley Strieber. We talked about him in the previous episode. He is an author of a book called Communion, which I, once again, did not bring with me. Although, to be fair, I was listening to the Audible version, so that'd be somewhat difficult to bring with me. It's on my phone. Anyway, to recap, I find that Whitley Strieber, he's probably one of the best, as far as I could find, writers on this topic. He's probably the most detailed, and he's attempting at a level of objectivity. Again, I would. he's not able to find the objectivity he's looking for, especially in a topic that is as odd and mysterious as this. And what is happening in this scene is that his son starts having these dreams that he finds to be somewhat disconcerting, because as his son is describing what he is seeing, it seems to very much resemble what is happening to him, where he as an adult feels like he's more cognizant of what's happening, and when he's encountering these small grays or small figures, his son is now describing a very similar scene, but he's recounting it as a dream, and he's never had these conversations with his son, probably out of fear of terrifying him, and he hadn't at that point encouraged him to go to hypnosis. So most of what's happening in this scene is that Stryber is recounting the story of his son speaking with and being in kind of a doctor-like room where they're observing the son, which from his mind, he's convinced, at least to a degree, that this is a real thing, and at least it's worth us exploring more. In terms of from his mind as a naturalist, he's thinking, if this is a phenomena that's happening, whether it is just purely in our minds or there's something external to us, we need to look into it further, because there's obviously things that are happening within my experience, others' experiences, and now my son is experiencing the same things. So for Stryber, it was the way that he described the physical appearance of these things that struck him as the most telling, I think, where he felt like it wasn't just a dream, or at least had some kind of connection to these other experiences that he was having. So all that to say, today we're going to talk a little bit about their physical appearance, and what seems to be a common analysis between most experiences. And again, a lot of the stuff that you'll read is very fluffy, but there are, as far as I can tell, genuine experiences that are happening. But at the same time, there is this sort of dreamlike element to it, where it's not consistent from one person to another, but there is something happening, and there is parallels between two accounts. So I don't know if you have anything that you want to add to that.
Is there a reason why you would say dream-like element and not just people telling stories?
Yeah, I think that, at least, again, I'm just assuming that they're telling the truth as far as they're recollecting, and I think that's what's happening.
Because that's how they're presenting it.
Yeah,
just taking their position on it.
Right. Yeah, assuming their position. From the way they're writing their prose, I don't think that, at least a lot of them, I'm sure there are some that are intentionally lying, I don't think that Whitley Strieber and his ilk are intending to deceive. And I think these are genuine experiences that they're having. But I don't know that, again, like we talked about in previous episodes, I think that what they're experiencing is likely demonic. I wouldn't know what other category to put it into.
I don't know his story, so I can't speak to that.
Yeah. So, but essentially, he's one of the guys that we talked about last time, and his story was such that, so, how do you say this? He had been experiencing things for a number of decades. He decided to write it down in his book Communion, where he would experience things like little gray people walking into his room and lifting him off to take him somewhere, running experiments on him, telling him that he was the one, and stuff like that. Which is somewhat, it's an experience that does have some threads of commonality between his experience and a few other stories that we read. So as far as like the dreamlike element, it seems like at one level there are things that are common between people, and then there are things that seem like they're mushy as far as like them being able to recount, because all this stuff is very wishy-washy. Like they're not even often sure if the experience they had. Some are more like definitive, like I had this experience, and then some are like I needed hypnosis to even remember that was a thing, which I'm not a fan of the utilization of hypnosis, but it does seem strange that when people do practice things like hypnosis, that a lot of those things that they encounter in their suppressed memory do seem to have some commonality between it. So I think there's a lot of deception in there, and it's hard to like parse up between where those things line up. But to
Okay, so yeah, what I was getting at was like when someone recounts and tells their stories, there's tends to be embellishing, and what we just read reminded me of something that's just completely embellished. And so that's why I was asking. Well, yeah, you're gonna have different accounts of what they're wearing and all these other things because there's probably a layer to it that where they tell the story so many times over and over. If they're getting a lot of attention from it, how much? But in terms of the actual experience, yeah, they had these experiences.
Yeah,
and as you said, from the first one, demonic experiences.
right.
And so, to your point, if it's a dream, it's because they're being impressioned by another spiritual being to think about and meditate upon things, and bringing them to these otherworldly realities, and even realities. But so yeah, that's good.
Yeah, and even if what is happening, there's always a few different things that you could, boil this down to. Now, one, they could be lying and just totally fabricating the whole thing. It could be a genuine experience of meeting some kind of other physical thing, or it could be a spiritual entity that, or some combination of the physical and the spiritual. Even if we're like trying to stretch beyond like what we would normatively think within these categories, like really pushing it, any one of those possibilities still leads me to say that like it's demonic, because whatever they're preaching is non-gospel, right? Mm-hmm. Like what they, at least what you can deduce from the books of people recounting their stories, what they say, of like, here's what they told me, here's the important things, here's what I need to focus on in my life. And most of the time it seems like very trivial things. Like last time it was the person that was told to go dig a well, and then they'll come again, promising they'll come again if you dig a well by hand,
If you build it, they will come.
Right. If you build it, they will come.
Do you remember that movie?
I never actually watched it. Just that
baseball.
Oh wait,
if you build it, they will come.
Well, I'm thinking of Benchwarmers. Is that what you're thinking of? But that movie was quoting another movie.
I could tell you didn't know what I was talking about. Not that was a bad thing. It just dates me. I'm a bit older.
Yeah, fair enough.
Anyway, our viewers, some might pick
up. Fair
just
enough.
Type it in. If you build it, they will come.
Field of Dreams.
Field of Dreams.
There we go. Thank you, Ethan. Cool. So the concept of the Greys is often associated with popular culture accounts of alien culture encounters. Wow. These entities are typically described with a certain distinctive features, although it's important to note that these descriptions vary widely among different accounts and sources. Here are some general explanations of features commonly attributed to the Greys. So, physical appearance. So Greys are often described as humanoid beings with a slight, smaller build and height ranging from 3 to 5 feet. They also have hairless, smooth, grayish-white skin. Most distinctive feature is their large almond-shaped eyes, or solid black eyes as well, with a significant portion of their. Wow, I really can't talk today. Solid black eyes, which cover a significant portion of their face. I don't think I put this on here later, but I've also heard from a number of sources that people often have a smell that's attributed to these encounters.
I think you mentioned in the first episode too.
Yeah, so they have like a sort of a urine sort of strong smell where that sort of smell often brings people back to like having a gripping fear, which again varies between people. Like it's not like everybody has an extreme fear of these experiences. Some of them do and don't want to experience it, and some of them are actively looking for more of these experiences and want to dive deeper into it. And then the head shape, Greys are reported to having disproportionately large heads compared to their bodies. Their heads are typically described as round oval shapes And the forehead is often prominent. Number 3 is lack of external features. Greys are commonly described as having minimal facial features, such as a small nose and mouth. Ears are often described as small or lacking external earlobes. Limbs and digits. Greys are typically have long, slender limbs with 3 or 4 fingers on each hand, including a thumb. And their fingers are reported being long and thin, lacking distinct joints. Clothing. Greys are often depicted as being naked or wearing tight-fitting clothes, one-piece suits that often appear seamless. What I've always find like really funny about this is that this is such like a heavy topic and like full of mystery and intrigue and just weird all around. And they wear jumpsuits.
It's because these visions came out in the 60s and 70s.
Well, I think
yeah. You think about Aleister Crowley and all them. It's when this all started. And
yeah.
So it makes sense. It makes sense contextually, historically.
Yeah.
And you'd think if a demonic being's going to appear, and well, what's interesting is they're not appearing in a human manner. So that's where it's kind of strange. It's almost like if it is demonic, then its intent is just to scare and put fear into people through wild and weird imaginative creatures.
Right.
Which is where it kind of doesn't fit with the biblical idiom or picture of the fallen angelic realm. And that's why I'm a little more skeptical on to what extent this is just influenced by demons, no doubt. But what the visions and things are seeing are these characters and creatures that they're all having similar experiences are of some are just apparitions of sorts to just put fear and self attention into their minds, because everybody, as you're noting, is in your research, everyone is directed back to themselves as like a savior.
Yeah.
And then you have these creatures who are just, I don't know if someone had the first vision of an alien and everyone else had. I don't know. I don't get the creature.
Yeah.
Biblically.
Yeah. Like
other than just imagination is what I'm saying.
Yeah, it very well could be. I think there's a possibility that perhaps they have some kind of ability of manipulation of space around them where they're able to present like a puppet or something like that. Maybe. It doesn't really matter to me in terms of like trying to figure out what's the kernel of the gospel or thing that they're trying to present. I think you're right. Like it doesn't fit the paradigm of like how the Bible talks about angelic figures in terms of the forms that it presents. So,
although I guess to your point. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so like you can't say with any sort of definitive nature that this is what it is, but you can say definitively that what is being said here is demonic.
Yeah, I was thinking, with some like cherub, they have wings. There's a certain otherworldly appearance to them for sure, but it's a glorious beauty and something that would pull you in. Yeah. But this seems like these things are like they want to study us. Their stories are always about how they're. I don't want to get too far off the characters, the traits here.
This is probably more interesting. Let's go.
I was just thinking, stories consistently that I heard were that the aliens themselves are of a higher intellect and, of course, interpreting it naturalistically or some here spiritually in a creative sense. Like they're never taken as gods per se, like the infinite, immutable, unchangeable, glorious God or anything like that. It's taken as they're mighty beings, almost like the pre-flood mighty ones, the sons of God, and there's something just uniquely powerful about them. Just be honest, but they're always here to observe, almost like they're the anthropologists, but the alienology, like aliens studying us, as
Right.
I suppose, and
Alien
and
anthropology.
helping us trying to learn about us, and yet helping us to become like them. Some of the stories.
Yeah.
So it's just it just almost sounds like humans extrapolating their worldview onto the aliens, and the aliens coming back on. It's like, it just seems like the way they're painted sounds like modern day, like you mentioned, either naturalists or secularist methodology on what these aliens are doing and who they are.
Yeah, for sure.
Which wouldn't be beyond demonic, of course. Like that's not my point. But my point is,
Isn't it Hebrews where it says that angels are like eager to look into these things? I think talking about salvation. So is there a sense that maybe aliens have like a innate desire to learn, because they're not omniscient? So when something new or there's a new development, they're quite curious about what's going to happen. I mean, a lot of extra biblical books name them as watchers, right? That angels are watchers. And I don't want to put too much credence to that, because that's Book of Enoch stuff. But I don't know.
That's a good point. I think that them studying us is not too far. It's just, so yeah, that's legitimate. I'm thinking more what got my mind turning on that is where they get the general story is you get taken up into a ship, they study your DNA, and then they put their DNA in you to make you stronger or something, or they take your DNA and they go off and do something with it, or they try to impregnate or whatever. Like it's not like I fear if it's maybe that's what they're doing.
So this is the story I've been telling myself, and this is wild. So don't put any weight on this as far as like biblical direction, but this is just what seems to make sense. Like if this is genuinely demonic entities appearing before people and having influence, I wonder if, since the time of the gospel going forth and Jesus putting them to shame, that if they've been weakening so much over time that that's what's left of them. Because it seems different than the deceptions of the pre-Christian era, but it also feels similar to it.
Like pre-Adam? What do you mean?
No,
Dispensational theology.
Okay, all right. So
you were talking like a post-mill 1 minute, angels being crushed, and then the next minute you're saying pre-Christianity.
Right. All right, fair point. But you know what I mean, though. It's like
no, I know what you mean.
Pre-incarnation.
Yeah.
I wonder if that since all these things are so weird and they're at least somewhat successful in being deceptive, and they do seem like genuine experiences, but at the same time they're not like as concrete as someone that's it seems to what you could find about Baal in the past, right? I wonder if they've been over time, since they've been put to shame, if they're just getting weaker and they're just doing whatever they can, and maybe that's why they look so sickly. Again, that's all like conjecture, unbased conjecture.
Right. A lot of this has to be because we're dealing with stories they're stories.
Yeah.
Testimonies that, and then also making the connection. Like I think you made the connection in the first episode, was that we concluded that these are either just people having extreme psychological experiences, which is common to, in a real low percentage of humanity, a common occurrence. And they're similar. The wiring it could be completely naturalistically explained. Be really weird, but great. Or it is just flat out demonic experiences, which all these signs of what's being the end goal of the experience is demonic. It's attention to yourself. You're the savior. It's getting people caught up into other Gnosticism, looking for knowledge beyond where God has placed it. All the signs of historic demonic activity is what's going on in them.
Yep.
So I'm with you. I lean that way. I think where I'm leaning now is just thinking whatever's going on there, their demons are leading them into some type of vision or insights that are putting mystery and fear into them and a sense of awe, but it's a false reality.
Yeah.
But I haven't studied enough, so I have not read. I am not as versed as you in this, so I'm just really winging it from the hip.
Which is super limited as well.
In fact, Ethan knows more of these stories than I, so feel free to chime in more.
Yeah, and
what passage? So that was Hebrews. What was the verse?
Yeah, so I want to make a correction on that. It's actually 1 Peter 1:12. Figuring that's probably in Peter or it's in Hebrews.
So and I'll just read that real quick. So it's you said 1:12.
Yeah. Okay. 1 Peter 1:12.
There we go. So it was revealed to them that they were not serving themselves, but you in these things which now have been announced to you through those who preach the gospel to you by the Holy Spirit sent from heaven, these things which angels long to look. Therefore, prepare your minds. Actually, I want to read, so going back up to verse 10. As to this salvation, the prophets who prophesied of the grace that would come to you made careful searches and inquiries, seeking to know what person or time the Spirit of Christ within them was indicating as he predicted the sufferings of Christ and the glories to follow. It was revealed to them that they were not serving themselves, but you in these things which now have been announced to you through whom we preach the gospel to you by the Holy Spirit sent from heaven, things into which angels long to look.
Dude.
So yeah, it's really particularly attentive to the revelation of God to humanity about salvation. And what's interesting is, let's look at long to look. We have...
So while you're pulling up that stuff, I just want to add really quick.
Long, desire, lust for. I knew it was, so it's a verb from to lust.
Interesting.
Greatly desire something, so anyway, go ahead. I'll keep
Okay. So I was just gonna say, for me, this topic of UFOs and aliens feels so depressing in a way, especially looking at the interest that people have in this topic and how gospel oriented they are around this thing. And what we try to do in this show is try to be systematic about the belief of a different worldview and talk about the belief set. Part of it is for this one, there's just not a lot to talk about. Part of the belief set is just the appearance, which is, if we're talking about religions typically or more thought out belief sets, there's just not a lot here. It just feels depressing to me when we're talking about what they seem as the key to reality. And then reading that verse though is just it's amazing to me. Even just talking about this stuff just feels dour. And then reading about how Christ came with the true gospel and we get to behold these things. Just
so when I said,
are excited about it.
the angels are excited about it.
I was going to say that's probably a proper term to use. So obviously lust can be taken in a wrong sense, but it's a great desire. And
that burning desire, yeah.
In the so this great desire, and the purpose is to look, and that's the other verb, parakupto, and and that's the infinitive. So, and I think it's an infinitive purpose. So they long in order that they can look into these things. So it makes sense with Ethan's point that it wouldn't be outside. It's actually within the norms of their disposition is to look into the image of God and where we're going and what God's doing, and they don't know it all. And to even analyze the human body itself would be quite the mystery. We as humans are blown away by the more we learn about
even ourselves.
It's incredible. So pulling us up in a ship and starting to do some studies, making a little sense.
Yeah.
But it's done just if that is the case, providing that it just under the assumption, it would make sense, and that they would do it, but they're doing it in the wrong way. Whereas the elect angels are the ones peering in and looking down eagerly and desirously in awe of what God's doing in salvation, of bringing many sons and daughters to glory. That God would even incarnate himself and be the atoning sacrifice for sin on the cross in the place of us. And the angels get that, and they wonder why, like the glorious, immutable, perfect, triune God sending forth his Son and then the power of the Spirit into our lives. Yeah, they're longing to look.
Yeah. That makes me want to do a Tom Cruise dance and jump off the chair.
Yeah. Well, now I'm convinced these aliens are demons. They're the fallen. They're not the elect. They're not piercing. Yeah. They're not lusting rightly.
Yeah. I mean, it does seem like that because there's so much of this stuff that is like deeply sexual.
Right. They're actually, maybe that's better to put it. The fallen angels are lusting, whereas elect angels are eagerly looking into these things.
Yeah.
And I haven't studied the wider context and the angelology behind all this, but I'm assuming it's just a general statement of the angels. It just says angeloi, so it's just angels.
Yeah. Anyway, so just to continue on that list, the communication is broadly described as telepathic, with individuals reporting direct exchange of thoughts and feelings. Motion and posture grades are said to move with distinct gliding moves, like
I thought you were possessed for a second. I was freaking out.
The posture is often reported as rigid and upright. Emotional expression. Grays are commonly associated with a lack of overt emotional expression, with descriptions suggesting a demeanor of neutrality or detachment.
After this I looked, and behold, a door standing open in heaven, and the first voice, which I had heard speaking to me like a trumpet, said, "Come up here, and I will show you what must take place after this." At once I was in the Spirit, and behold, a throne stood in heaven, with one seated on the throne, and he who sat there had an appearance of jasper and carnelian, and around the throne was a rainbow that had an appearance of an emerald. Around the throne were 24 thrones, and seated on the thrones were 24 elders, clothed in white garments, with golden crowns on their heads. From the throne came flashes of lightning and rumblings and peals of thunder, and before the throne were burning 7 torches of fire, which are the 7 spirits of God. And before the throne there was, as it were, a sea of glass like crystal. And around the throne, on each side of the throne, are 4 living creatures, full of eyes in front and behind. The first living creature like a lion, and the second living creature like an ox, and the third living creature with a face of a man, and the fourth living creature like an eagle in flight, and the fourth living creature, each of them with 6 wings, are full of eyes, all around, within, and day and night. They never cease to say, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come."
All right, for the last part of this show, I want to end and talk about the ancient gods and do our best over audio to describe what we're seeing. Just because a lot of people do speculate that the ancient gods had something to do with what we're commonly, or what people do experience as the alien phenomena that we see today. Or not we, but some people do. I haven't.
Not yet. I haven't been dreaming after reading these books, but
there we go.
Actually, if you, never mind. It's not worth saying.
There we go. Not worth saying. Cool.
All right, I'll say it. So I was thinking, if you read both of these in one sitting right before bed, you'd probably dream of whatever.
Oh, probably.
You'd probably come up in your mind, and you think, I was there. I was in the ship.
Right.
Anyway.
Cool. So, ancient astronauts in Sumerian mythology. Some theories suggest that the Anunnaki,
Yeah.
a group of deities in Sumerian theology, were actually extraterrestrial beings who influenced human civilization. So this guy seems very human-like to me, which we did see some of those in previous
Especially
stories.
the pine cone in his hand.
Yeah, especially the pine cone hand, which apparently has some significance in alien thoughts. That you'll often see The pine cone and the handbag is actually very common within this stuff, and you'll even see like people report Bigfoot having like some kind of orb or something like that he carries with him.
I think that's the same with Wiccan practices. A cone in a handbag.
Yeah, probably. But yeah, pine cone and a handbag.
I've just made that up. But the cone for sure. You got to be, I mean,
There's something about hell in a handbasket?
that's what it is. That's what it is. That's where it comes from. This is where it comes from.
Yeah.
The pine cone represents hell.
Quote us on that. Okay, so that's great. The image is pretty significant. It's got the wings, like the double wings, almost like you'd think of a cherub or an angel of some sort. The not all angels appear in these same ways. Of course, we talk about different hierarchy and angelology, but some were depicted as having wings. Not all.
Right.
But this is kind of got that feature going.
Right. So that wouldn't surprise me. What I was going to say is that in the last episodes ago, we talked about someone that was appearing as a human that led them to the doctors and small beings and stuff like that. So it's not without context to have somebody that's a little bit more human-like looking. But he does have the double wings, which is pretty. That seems pretty angel-like to me.
Egyptian stuff going on.
Yeah, and then
was this one found in like North Africa or
Sumerian region, so wherever that was. Okay. I don't know ancient geography.
Ur of the Chaldeans.
Ur of the Chaldeans. Some people often associate Ra, in Egyptian mythology, the sun god, as sometimes referenced in speculative theories about ancient astronauts and extraterrestrial influence on Earth. Did I say it right that time? Extraterrestrial.
I think so.
I mean, it makes my mouth hurt saying it. Mm-hmm. Like my jaw gets all tense saying the word extraterrestrial. There we go. A couple of my favorites when talking about this are the last three. I just find them a bit more convincing and interesting. Viracocha in Inca mythology. Viracocha. Okay, Ethan knows more than me because he's from Aztec land.
Yeah.
Is it Aztec land? Inca, darn it.
It says Inca on here, Inca mythology. I just didn't know how to pronounce it either. I thought it said like incorporation, INC. And I was like, what do I do with the A on the end? Forget it.
Oh my gosh, okay.
Anyway, yeah, Inca.
Okay. Viracocha.
Pretty good.
Cool.
Viracocha. Coca. That's where the cocoa comes from.
Right, got it, okay. I feel like this guy, I'm assuming these are like two little mini legs on top of a pedestal. This seems like more like the pictures of the aliens that we see to me with the eyes and the mouth. Like often they'll talk about a really rigid mouth being more wide than circlish, but this seems to me kind of more emblematic of like a potential alien. Mm-hmm. And then same with the Dogon people in Nomos in Dogon mythology, however you say that. The amphibious beings are sometimes linked with extraterrestrial visitors in these discussions. But then my favorite of all,
but not limited to,
is our last one, and that is Baal. Or Baal. Baal. Thank you. When I see pictures of Baal, or like in particular this image of Baal, with his single arm, bigger eyes, and then some pictures have him with like a more open, slanted mouth, he looks very alien-like to me.
Show Ethan.
Dude, I think Baal.
Pot upside down on his head.
I think Paul.
It's the pot head.
I think,
well done. Hell in a handbasket and a pot head. If you get two things from this episode.
Don't mind the dad jokes.
That's what it is.
Yeah, I think Baal, straight up demon alien.
So yeah, to lead us to how you got there.
So I'm just saying it based on how
Demon
it looks.
alien.
Demon
Oh,
alien.
I see.
Yeah, purely speculative.
It
Based
looks
on how
like
it
a
looks.
ballerina to me a little bit. It's got like its toes are down. It's wearing like, it looks
It
like a
does.
skirt. And his hand is here. The other arm could be back here. And he's just doing a little like, tutu thing. What do they call it, Like, I mean, seriously.
I think
It's the ballerina ball.
you're totally right.
Um,
So we all know now
ball.
that the ballet is evil.
Ballerina ball. Ball. Okay.
The ballet.
That's the conclusion.
Yeah, that's the conclusion. Ballet is evil.
Ballet. That's where Baal, it's a derivative of Baal.
Yep, exactly.
Quote us.
So
That's cool.
Where
Where are we going?
We're
I
making,
digress.
making all these false connections. Quote us. All right.
okay.
No, okay, yeah, that was intentionally false. Everything I said to quote was because there was no connection.
Right. Anyway, so all that to say is I want to end with this verse, and we can kind of talk about it after a bit. So 1 John 4, 1 through 3. Beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits to see whether they are from God. For many false prophets have gone out into the world. By this you should know the Spirit of God. Every spirit that confesses that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh is from God, and every spirit that does not confess Jesus is not from God. This is the spirit of the Antichrist, which you heard was coming and now is come in the world already. And I don't think it's so surprising that when the aliens have said stuff about Jesus, it was more like Jesus is an alien or stuff like that. So, yeah, it's anti.
Which I think that's the Hebrews, right?
Yeah.
That he is not an angel, and that's a very specific point in the book of Hebrews. Is like,
Yeah.
no, Christ is not an angel. He's greater than the angels.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you don't confess him as he is, then you're not confessing him at all.
Yeah.
So yeah. So it's kind of a last little bit to go.
And one of some of those early heresies are Ebionism. So you have that the Christ was just a mere man.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have other ones like Docetism, which he appeared to be human, but he wasn't. So there's always a tendency to not affirm that the Christ is who the Christ is, God incarnate.
Yeah, you always wanting to explain it within
because
categories.
if you do say that, then you have to deal with Jesus Christ.
Right.
For who he is. Right? You have to submit to him as Lord. And what he said, it was true.
Yeah.
Is true.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that's, hitting on this, is it just puts everyone in a corner. Yeah.
Yep. Cool.
That'll be good. That's good. We're good.
Yeah, for this episode, it's kind of odd because I'm trying to put together any sort of like systematic. You have to follow what people seem to deem as important. This is what seemed important to me when going through this. Is like you have the common experiences, commonalities between form, and whatever sort of message they have. Obviously, doesn't have a very distinctive or.
Well, let's do it real fast then. Real fast. No, I get it. Yeah. So actually, finish what you said was their systematic.
So the main beliefs to me seem to have to do with form right here, like we talked about today. The common experiences and common form and their experience interacting with them. The kinds of things that they say always go back to the individual experience with the alien, and the gospel pretty much boils down to, what have you done with Earth? Humans have failed. You're the one. We may have to start over if you don't fix it. So like very, very damning in terms of, listening to them. If we're looking for any sort of good news or anything like that, there is no good news being shared. And then beyond that is just like, it seems like torture and needless mystery to me, where people feel this helplessness about what are they experiencing, and there's no ability to control enough to where you can discover actual truth behind the veil.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's what I was going to say, is it seems like the doctrine of revelation is confusion, right? They don't have they're skeptics ultimately, right? So, and then their doctrine of creation is just
Mo-
they don't know.
Yeah, mostly naturalistic.
Yeah, and we're just here.
Mm-hmm.
The doctrine of sin, what is that?
We broke the earth for the most part.
And their doctrine of salvation,
Listen to us.
and the end goal of all things.
End goal of all things is to probably not perish. But if you're naturalistic, it's inevitable, and probably leaning back into teleology, probably the goal is to become like them. So I mean, if you're hearing that from a biblical lens, when they say stuff like to become like us, or like that seems to be the goal of these conversations, that very much sounds like worship to me. Like if you're aiming to be ultimately like them, even from an evolutionary perspective, like we want humanity to evolve like that, that's aiming humanity's identity after something else that is not God, not in the image of God.
Right, and notice I left theology proper out because they're typically not
Right.
wanting to talk about.
Yeah, sometimes I've heard like
pantheists,
references.
maybe.
Yeah, probably more like that.
It's just all confusion.
Yeah,
confusion.
it's just
It kind of reminds me a little bit of when we did. What group was it? It was just more recent. It wasn't too long ago. Where when we were studying them, we're thinking they don't have a system of thought. Maybe it was, well, yeah, I can't think of it. I was thinking Unitarian Universalists, but that wasn't the group.
Yeah.
We just recently did one, but yeah,
there's a few of them that don't really have a solid system of thought in the slightest. They might have like more of an identity, like Rastafarianism was more about identity in a culture, more than it was identity in like a set of beliefs.
I forgot we did that group.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh goodness. Okay. Well.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you for joining us on X Garage today. Any final thoughts, Heath?
Well, thanks for all your hard work on this study. I'm sure I enjoyed it just as much as our audience.
Sweet.
And so thank you, and I was really blessed by our time. I think the takeaway there is that last passage you read. That's
Amen.
a good takeaway.
All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us today, and we'll end with a few stories, I think, and head out. Thank you for joining us on X Garage.
X Garage.
In the quiet town of Howe, Idaho, June 1948, marked the beginning of Paul Solemn's extraordinary journey. Late one evening, as he stood with his wife and brother-in-law on their ranch, they witnessed three unexplained glowing objects in the night sky. It was an eerie spectacle that would set the stage for the mysterious events that would follow. Solemn would later recount hearing a particular mental message. "We are from another planet. You shall hear from us again." Four years elapsed before Solemn's skies were again illuminated. In the fall of 1952, he spotted a UFO over his ranch, and this time, curiously led him to pursue the unidentified craft until it landed. What awaited him defied belief. A man with long blonde hair, clad in a pristine white uniform, claiming to be from Venus. The visitor delivered an ominous message, foretelling future disaster that would befall Earth. 18 years passed before Paul Solemn emerged in Prescott, Arizona, armed with a determination to prove the reality of his extraordinary encounters. On August 7th, 1970, under the watchful eyes of witnesses, including Baptist minister Reverend John Foster, Solemn embarked on a peculiar mission. Standing outside, Solemn spent 15 minutes mentally calling out to extraterrestrial beings. "They're here!" he exclaimed, his conviction unwavering. Moments later, an object materialized in the sky, performing mesmerizing maneuvers, rising, stopping, hovering, zigzagging. But as soon as Solemn ceased speaking, the mysterious craft vanished, leaving witnesses astounded. Reports flooded in from other areas describing erratic pulsing lights that seemed to defy the laws of earthly physics. The enigmatic encounters of Paul Solemn cast a shadow over the ordinary, blurring the lines between reality and the unexplained. With each sighting, this story took on a new dimension, challenging the limits of what the mind could comprehend. As the echoes of his encounter reverberated through time, the question lingered. Were these incidents merely a cosmic drama unfolding in the mind of Paul Solemn? Or did they unveil the truth that transcended the boundaries of our understanding? The answers, like the UFOs in the night sky, remain elusive, leaving the enigma of Paul Solemn's encounters eternally suspended in the cosmos.